In 1996, Tamagotchis were selling faster than stores could stock them. A tiny plastic egg that could actually die if you forgot about it. A year earlier, clear plastic inflatable chairs were showing up in living rooms across America. And we will get to exactly why those came with patch kits included in the box. That's one you'll want to stick around for. And in millions of bedrooms, lava lamps were glowing on nightstands right next to stacks of jewel cases nobody could stop collecting. That was the 90s. If it felt a little futuristic or completely over the top, it ended up in somebody's home. Here are the strangest trends that took over American life in the 90s. By 1997, over 40 million Tamagotchis had been sold worldwide, and somehow that still undersells how completely they took over. It was a keychain, a tiny pixelated screen the size of a thumb, and it needed you. Feed it, clean up after it, play games with it, or it got sick and died. Schools started banning them because kids were sneaking them under desks mid-lesson just to answer a feeding alert. Parents were keeping them alive overnight so their children would not wake up to a dead pet. Nobody questioned any of this. It was just Tuesday in 1997. Lava lamps were invented in 1963 by a British accountant who came up with the idea while staring at an egg timer filled with oil and wax on a pub counter. But the 60s version was a novelty. The 90s version was a bedroom essential. By the mid-90s, Spencer gifts alone could barely keep them on the shelves. Every teen bedroom had one glowing in the corner next to the CD tower and the black light poster. The problem was that if you ever tipped one on its side out of curiosity, and everyone did, the wax broke apart and never recovered. There was a window in the late 1990s when frosted tips were not just acceptable, they were aspirational. Guys sat in salon chairs with foil packets pressed tight against just the ends of their hair, waiting for the bleach to take. Hair crimpers lived on the other side of the same coin. They were a metal plate iron with a zigzag pattern that turned perfectly normal hair into something resembling a lasagna noodle. Girls spent 45 minutes crimping every section before school. They walked out into the humidity and watched it fall flat within the hour. Beaded curtains had one job. They divided a space while letting light and air flow through. In practice, they were a wall of noise that announced every single person who walked through them, rattled every time someone opened a window nearby, and tangled into knots that took 10 minutes to unsort. They showed up in doorways, closets, bedroom entrances, and sometimes just hanging on a plain wall with no doorway involved at all. Teenagers put them up without asking, and parents let it happen because at least it was not a tattoo. Bop It came out in 1996, and the premise was almost insultingly simple. It was a plastic toy that barked commands at you. Bop it, pull it, twist it, and it sped up until you made a mistake. Kids held it with both hands, one thumb on the bop button, one hand gripping the pull handle, while the voice counted down, faster and faster. It was loud enough to hear from 2 rooms away. Parents bought it thinking it would be put down after 20 minutes. Most of them were still hearing it in their sleep a week later. Speaking of things nobody asked for but everybody ended up owning, the one coming up later in this list actually came with its own repair kit. Keep watching, because that story gets better. Genera introduced Hypercolor shirts in 1991, and the idea was genuinely fascinating on paper. A shirt that changed color with heat. Press your hand against it, and a perfect handprint appeared. The problem was the dye was not selective about what it reacted to. Armpits turned a completely different color within a few weeks. Sitting in a warm classroom meant the back of the shirt lit up like a map of everywhere you had been leaning. Genera sold over $18 million worth of Hypercolor clothing in the first year. The instructions said cold water only. Almost nobody listened. Troll dolls were not invented in the 90s. A Danish woodcutter named Thomas Dam carved the first one in 1959 as a gift for his daughter. But the 90s brought them back in a way that made the original run look modest. By 1992, trolls were the second best-selling toy in America, behind only Barbie. Tiny ones clipped onto pencils, giant ones took up entire shelves. The hair was the whole point. That wild explosion of neon color standing straight up off a wrinkled little face. Nobody could fully explain why. It just was. Slap bracelets started as a shop class project. A teacher in Wisconsin named Stuart Anders made the first one in 1983 from a repurposed steel measuring tape. Then in 1990, they exploded into every toy aisle, vending machine, and classroom in America. You held the flat metal strip between two fingers, pressed it against your wrist, and watched it snap into a perfect coil in under a second. Schools banned them almost immediately, which turned out to be the most effective marketing decision that never cost the industry $1. A band bracelet was an essential bracelet. And if slap bracelets were the accessory that defined the decade, the next item on this list is the one that defined every single living room. And yes, we are finally getting to the patch kits. At some point in the early 1990s, keeping your scrunchie collection on your wrist stopped being enough. There were velvet ones, satin ones, ones with little bows and limited runs from Claire's that sold out if you did not act fast. The solution for millions of teenage girls across America was the scrunchie wall, a dedicated section of bedroom wall covered entirely in scrunchies, arranged by color, fabric, or mood. Tiger Beat and YM Magazine ran bedroom makeover features that included scrunchie walls as a legitimate design element. She probably did not imagine her invention ending up as wallpaper, but here we are. Inflatable furniture arrived in the mid-90s, and for approximately one season, it felt like the most forward-thinking home decision a person could make. There were clear plastic chairs, sofas, and ottomans that you blew up with a pump and sat in like you were living inside a space station. Rooms by Design sold inflatable armchairs for under $30. What the commercials did not mention was that sitting down produced a sound that could generously be described as unfortunate. A single pet claw, a misplaced pen, or one unlucky seam could mean the whole thing was flat on the floor by morning. Patch kits were sold separately. That tells you everything about how confident the manufacturers actually were. Jelly shoes were made entirely from PVC plastic, had no breathability whatsoever, and became one of the defining footwear choices of the 90s anyway. They came in every color imaginable: clear, hot pink, purple, electric blue, and were cheap enough that owning several pairs at once felt completely reasonable. The blister situation was the problem nobody advertised. Plastic against skin with no cushioning meant a full day of wearing jellies left marks that lasted a week. Mothers bought them because they were affordable and easy to clean. Daughters wore them because they sparkled in the sun. By the mid-90s, owning a lot of CDs was not just a music preference. It was a personality statement. And a tall, freestanding CD tower spinning in the corner of the living room was how you displayed that personality to everyone who walked through the door. The jewel cases cracked if you looked at them wrong, and the spine was so narrow that reading the title meant tilting your head completely sideways. Columbia House mailed out cardboard inserts with a penny literally taped to the reply card. It felt like abundance. It felt like culture. And then the iPod showed up. So many of these trends were impractical, over-designed, or just plain ridiculous. Furniture that popped, shoes that blistered, toys that screamed at you, and hair that took an hour to style and 10 minutes to ruin. But at the time, every single one of them felt completely normal. That is exactly what the 90s did better than almost any other decade. It made the strange feel inevitable. And that is exactly why we still remember all of it. If this brought back some memories, subscribe to Memory Itch for more trips like this one.